I am Yvette Jones Swanson here in the Chicagoland area. But when I went into the military, I heard of boot camp, but I wasn't afraid of boot camp because I'm just thinking it's all calisthenics and running and push-ups and doing different drills. And I was used to that because I was always an athlete. But there were a few particular men who said a few things and I just brushed it off because growing up in sports, I was used to being called whatever. It didn't bother me. But it was one man in particular who took those comments and advances just way too far. And this man I couldn't get away from because he was the drill sergeant. I woke up with the drill sergeant, hung out with the drill sergeant all day, went to sleep, the drill sergeant was there. So there was no getting away from the drill sergeant. And that's when the trouble started. Advances became real. The first time I noticed that he was a bit more persistent, a bit more serious about what he was saying to me, that frightened me. The advances of words and gestures, it gave me anxiety. I was afraid that I couldn't leave this place. I didn't know anybody there. So I didn't know anybody I could trust. And I think, thinking back on it now, that he knew who he could intimidate that way. I don't know what he saw in me that triggered him to continuously attack and approach me and eventually rape me. And not just once, but several times. I remember after a PT test, we came back and I was so excited because I loved the running and the sit-ups and the push-ups and the camaraderie and also the competitiveness all at the same time. And I was just pumped. I came in second. My buddy who I met from, I forget where she was from. She had red hair. But anyway, she came in first because her push-ups were on point. She was strong. But when we got back to the barracks and I saw him turn the corner, I'm like, what's going to happen now? And when I saw him, my heart just started pounding like it wanted to come out of my chest. And I felt myself just slide down the wall behind me and I fainted. I fell out. Next thing I know, I'm in the back of a pickup truck and they take me to the base hospital. And my heart is just going. Supraventricular tachycardia. And that day, I was discharged from the military. My heart went into what's called tachycardia, a rapid heartbeat. Rapid enough where it couldn't pump oxygen because it was just going too fast and the oxygen couldn't pump. And that's how I fainted. The doctors told me that I have to rest. I've got to nap. I've got to, just take things as easy as I can. So everybody knew, my superiors knew that I had to take a nap. Where, how, I didn't know. So I'm thinking I could take a nap before they go to drill, not after they go to drill because that's when the classroom started. But before drill, I would take a nap. And I must have been up there too long because I felt the tap on my shoulder. And when I woke up, it was him standing over me in the barracks, all alone. And he took me to his little office. And then inside that little office was a little bathroom. This had to be maybe the third or fourth time. But this time when he woke me up and took me back there, I just didn't think that it would ever end, that I couldn't get home soon enough for this to end. But I'm just thinking to myself all the time, this man looks like one of my brothers on the mend. He looked like a man of valor, a man who is supposed to be taking care of me, but he's taking advantage of a situation of a young girl. And that was the most hurting part of it all. Now, I wasn't a virgin by, I had a boyfriend in high school, but this was not consensual. And it was something that was never supposed to happen. He was just nasty. Nasty coming off of a run, nasty coming to me, just filthy. I'm an 18-year-old girl who decided to join the military. And what we're told by our superiors is what we do. Who am I going to scream and yell to? I don't know these people. I'm afraid for my life because of what he told me. Who's going to listen to me? He's the drill sergeant. He's there to protect us. Who's going to listen to me if there's an allegation that he's taking me to the bathroom to have nasty sex? What these men do to young women, to young men in the military, is more psychological than anything. It took me years, and I found that man. I said, let me just go to the graduating class in 1984 at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And lo and behold, he was standing in formation to take a picture, and I found his picture, and I printed it out, and I saved it on my phone. And when I go and talk to the VA, even to this day, about what happened, nobody ever wants to know who did it. We know who did it. Everybody I talked to, all the females I talked to, they know who did it. But the VA doesn't want to know. What's done is done. I didn't even finish boot camp. It seems like the first time it happened, I was in the laundry. And it was supposed to have been two of us together at all times. Where my buddy went, how we got, why she left me in the laundry, I don't know. I can't even recall that far back. When I thought I heard her come in, he came in. And that was the very first incident. Was this a setup? And then I'm thinking, why didn't I leave when she left? But I know why I didn't leave, because I was doing laundry and having to clean up inside, because we all had to clean up different areas on the base. And one of the captains, that was her pet peeve. I remember her always saying that whenever she comes to the laundry, it has to be clean. So I have OCD. So I didn't mind cleaning up the laundry. I get to wash my clothes while I clean up at the same time. It's a win-win for me. But why she left, I don't know. And it happened in an instant. Where you come from? But when I first saw him, I wasn't afraid because he was a drill sergeant. And I'm thinking, okay, you come to check on me? No, not this time. You're the sitting duck now. And I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream. I was mad all the time. Every time it was just an anger, a hatred. But when I got around the other women, and we just laughed, and that's when I felt the lightness of, I'm still here. Oh, thank God I'm still here. After the tachycardia incident, and I was brought back to the barracks and told I was being discharged. I'm like, okay, I'll just go back to the VA when I get home, and they'll fix me and I'll come back. And I told one of the first sergeants, I said, I'm coming back. And he said, okay, Jones, okay. And for years, I tried to come back. I tried to join the Air Force. I tried to re-enlist in the Army. But because of that tachycardia, I could not. And then I just felt like, I let my parents down, because I told them there was a signing bonus. I think it was like $2,000, but I told them that signing bonus, I'm going to use that and give that to them so that they can put down on our first home. And to be told I'm being discharged by something that he caused, that I had no control over at 18. I just feel like a gut punch. Like, why couldn't anybody ask me, what happened? What do you think happened? Why did your heart go out? So I went to school here in Chicago. I got a little part-time job as a telemarketer. I was excited about that because I love talking on the phone. I love talking to people. And I met this guy. He was just sitting all alone and just into himself. And I said, he's mysterious. Come to find out, he was a Marine, an active duty reservist Marine. So that sparked my interest. I said, oh, good. He's not in the Army. He's a Marine like my brothers. Naive. He happened to be an abuser, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, spiritually, all of that. He abused the hell out of me. Part of my mind was trying to get out. The other part of him was so strong, and it kept me bound. I mean, when I think about being 19 and 20 and 21 again, this is how long I was with this guy, and then we got married. I told my mother the day before the wedding, I said, Mama, I don't want to marry him. I was 5 months pregnant with my first baby that I felt growing in my belly. She would move. She would kick. I could talk to her and I could feel her moving. And he would still fight me. I remember being on the floor in a fetal position, just holding my belly, begging him to stop kicking me. He was kicking me in my back. And I screamed. And the neighbors never, ever, ever said anything. I would call the police. I had an order of protection. They would come get him out the bed. I would run away. I would be homeless in my car with friends and family. They didn't want me. I didn't have any money to rent an apartment, so I had to go back home. This particular time, I had no fight in me. And when he stopped kicking, he left the house. The only person I thought to call was his mother. And she came over and called the ambulance, and the ambulance came and got me. And she went with us, me and my baby, to the hospital. And they induced labor because they said they couldn't save her. And I had to give birth to a still baby who had a name. And I had to go back home to him, so otherwise I would be homeless again. So I was married to him for about a year and 8 months. And the last time I left, I was homeless in my car until I saved enough money because I had a job. And my employers didn't even know I was homeless because I would get up and I knew where to go. To McDonald's, that was the best place to go, to park and go to the bathroom, wash up, change clothes, come and have breakfast. Well, I just kept moving forward. I never looked back. I just kept saying, what are the next connectors to what I'm doing? How am I going to connect these pieces together? I always look for purpose in things in life. And I don't just look at myself. I look at how can my abilities and talents and skills and gifts from God help me to help other people? Because I can hear people, I see them in their situations in housing and now in wellness. And I say, I know it's like a download. I know where they are. I start from where they are and take them to the next levels. Don't look back. Forget about that. You are here right now. Let's start right now and move, and don't stop. And I live life like that every day. I rented my first apartment. I never ever filled out an application before. And this first apartment I rented, the guy said, yeah, you could have it, even on my limited amount of money that I had saved up while living in my car. I just sought out opportunities while working for the city of Chicago. I licensed SROs, single room occupancies. And I thought to myself, if I had known about these single room occupancies, I would have lived here because I had enough money. I think back then it was like $250 or $300 a month. I could sell pop bottles and rent this place, but I didn't know. And a lot of people just didn't know. So that got me interested. And a friend of mine, an old boyfriend, he said, well, you should be a realtor. Oh, I didn't know anything about realtor. I grew up in public housing in the city of Chicago. And nobody ever told me that there is a person who can help you find a house and get paid for that too. And I could do that. And I became a realtor. And I found my passion in housing homeless people. I first started housing emancipated youth from the DCFS system, where the foster parents didn't want to adopt them and they're 18 now. They have to leave their foster parents' home. But where do these kids go? So I started housing them. Then I met seniors, homeless seniors. I'm like, my God, these seniors don't need to be homeless, but guess what? I'm familiar with SROs. So I started making phone calls and making connections and got the seniors connected with their limited income into SROs. Then I met veterans who were homeless, and some of them were seniors too. I'm like, oh my God, a homeless veteran. I didn't know I was the only one, or wasn't the only one. There's more, and you're homeless, and how are you living? So I started navigating their rental process and finding resources. I'm like, I could have had these resources. So I'm putting all this together. True story. Then my brother called, who was a Marine. He said, Yvette, I think you'll be good working with the veterans at Jesse Brown VA and Hines VA, because they have whatever subsidy. He didn't know what the words were. So I made the phone call, and I met with the director of housing down at the Hines VA here in Chicago. He said, yes, Yvette, we need help. I said, well, I've got the solution. And that was 20 years ago. And I'm still housing homeless veterans to this day. I just got off the phone with a very important meeting from the Department of Housing in the city of Chicago to start a coalition, a committee. I already have the answer. I wrote a national plan for veterans homeless combativeness housing, whatever my title is. I got to come up with an easy title, but it's a national plan to combat veterans housing. It's a step-by-step process. I narrowed it down to villages here in the Chicagoland area. the director of housing, whatever his title is, I got to get that right. I sent them 2 plans, and they're very impressed. I know how to house homeless veterans now. I was homeless 7 times or more. So I know where they are, and I know how to get them from being homeless to using subsidies, to renting apartments, to renting their own apartments, to buying their own home, and to becoming investors in real estate to help other homeless veterans get housed. That's what I do now. God gave us power. We have the power within us to tap into who we are, who He says we are. Change has to happen within ourselves. You can't let anybody tell you who you are.